You ever wonder why for some people it's just so easy to stay at a low body fat percentage? They have abs year round, and then for others, the more you try, it's like the harder it is to achieve. In this video, I want to break down for you guys abs 101, step by step how you can get to a low enough body fat percentage, see your abs, and maintain it from there in a way that's sustainable and that is going to fit most people, and that you can actually maintain your abs, see the progress, and not just that, but build a good physique along the way. Ever since I was a kid, even when I first started working out, I leaned a little bit more to the chubbier side, although in the beginning when I first started calisthenics, right, I could already see kind of my abs, which is why I kind of only focus on that, and I think that's a mistake that we all make, right? Instead of focusing on growing every single muscle in our body and actually getting stronger, we kind of just focus on the singular muscle groups which we can see and which we are unique in, which is why a lot of the time we don't make the progress that we could be making because we only focus on that. However, I was able to go from being a skinnier kid that wasn't, very muscular, didn't have a lot of strength, to being a very chubby and, bulked up kind of person, to now finally getting back down to a healthier body fat percentage, being stronger and maintaining a good amount of muscle mass, and finally being able to see my abs and maintain them year round. Now, before I get into it, always remember, guys, Rome was not built in a day. And if you're a busy man, of course, you can always go through every single mistake on your own, figure this out completely on your own, take 10, 20, 30 years out of your life. Or you can apply for my fitness coaching program, Fast Track Your Progress, link in the description. Let's get into it. Rule number one, step number one, being in a caloric deficit. Now, the reason why so many people struggle so much and they get into so many rabbit holes when it comes to achieving something that might seem so simple at first, the reason why they get into such big rabbit holes, they take so long, and sometimes it might seem impossible, is because there's so many gaps and so many rabbit holes which you can get into when trying to achieve a goal like this. Starting with not understanding the actual fundamentals of that specific goal. For example, getting abs to show, keyword show, people don't understand that however many crunches you do, however much you train your core, doesn't matter what you do, even if you do a lot of cardio, you're a boxer, if you don't get to a low enough body fat percentage, which is, you guessed it, achieved through a calorie deficit, you're never going to see your abs. So that's what you want to focus on first. And that is what I understood, but I kind of ignored because I was afraid that I was somehow going to lose muscle because I wasn't eating 3,000 calories per day, at least when I was bulking, right? That's the main reason why I couldn't see my abs during that whole time span of me hitting the gym, working out, doing all these different things. But yeah, you want to focus on being in a caloric deficit. And if you don't know what that is simply burning more calories than you consume during a day. So to go based off of something that's realistic, of course, always 2,000 calories is a good place to aim for, or what most people should be at in terms of the maintenance. But of course, most people are not there. They consume way more than 2,000 calories, or way more than whatever their maintenance is, right? For some people, it can be more, for some people, it can be less. However, you can create a caloric deficit. You can burn more calories than you consume through two different ways, either by eating less or moving more. Now, I think this is one of the biggest and first rabbit holes that most people will just immediately get stuck in. They'll focus completely on one or the other. Although, yes, there's two ways that you can do it, doesn't mean that you can't combine the two, right? Most people, they'll just be like, I don't want to change what I eat, so I'll just move more. I'll just do more cardio. Now, the downfall of that is that typically the cardio that most people will do will make them hungrier, make it harder for you to actually stay in that caloric deficit. So even though you are moving more, even though you are doing more cardio, most of the time, what happens is that you'll do your cardio, and that same cardio that you did will increase your hunger hormones to the point that you're gonna end up consuming those same calories that you burnt. In quick tip, it's extremely hard to burn calories, and it's extremely easy to just cut them out. Now, That's a good point, and that's another place where a lot of people will mess up in, which I will explain later on, when it comes to, you know, cutting calories and that kind of thing. When I say consuming less calories, it doesn't mean that you have to consume less food. That's a big mistake that people make, right? So instead of focusing on one completely on cardio because you don't want to change your diet, which is a bad idea because you're just gonna end up being hungrier, you're gonna end up over consuming, your body's gonna change your hormones to the point that you're gonna end up consuming more calories than you burnt in that cardio session, which is gonna be counterproductive, of course. You're gonna end up in the same spot. Instead of doing that, focus on mixing the two of them, doing some kind of cardio, which always I recommend doing something that is low intensity, like just walking, getting your steps in, something that I always preach. It is how I was able to go from 180 pounds to 150, losing 30 plus pounds and being able to retain a lot of muscle. How? By doing that, mixing both eating less calories and moving more. That is how I was able to create a caloric deficit over such a long period of time and still being able to maintain my muscle mass. So don't eat less food, eat less calories. And there's different ways that you can do that. Eat healthier food, eat voluminous food. What that means is eating foods that are not so calorie dense. Usually processed food is extremely calorie dense, right? Burgers, fries, sauces, mayonnaise, junk food, chips, cupcakes, all of these foods which we know are processed, they are typically extremely calorie dense, and it makes sense because there's so many ingredients packed into this tiny little thing to make it taste so good. So, as a rule of thumb, if the earth didn't make it, do not take it. That is the best way to go about things. Doesn't mean that you have to cut out foods that you like. You can still, you know, indulge a little bit from time to time. You want to focus on moderation. However, make sure that your diet is mostly based off of foods which are singular ingredient, like white rice, brown rice, whole grains, lean meats, steak, chicken, that kind of thing. Fats, healthy fats. And that is how you create that caloric deficit. And if you do that right, you do it over a long period of time, you don't rush into it, the longer that it takes for you to get to that low enough body fat percentage, the easier it is going to be for you to maintain that. That is an amazing and big tip that people will just throw off on the side because they're impatient. The longer that you stay in that caloric deficit, the more likely that it is that you're going to stay at that low enough body fat percentage. Usually 10% is when people start seeing their abs. So big tip, instead of creating a 1,000 calorie deficit, say you're burning 3,000 calories per day and consuming 2,000, that'd be a 1,000 calorie deficit. Now that is very extreme. You're going to be losing a lot of weight in that scenario. And while for some people that can be okay, most people, it's not going to be the healthiest option for their body, and they're probably going to end up binge eating. This is what happens whenever you go to the extreme too quickly. You end up falling back. And if you take your time, it's going to feel extremely easy because you're not creating that big of a change from one day to the other. Whenever you create that big calorie deficit from one day to the other, you're basically trying to reverse months, years of bad food choices within a few days. Your body is not going to respond well to that. It's going to be harder for you to adapt. It's going to be harder for you to stay there. So once you get to a low enough body fat percentage, optimally, or best case scenario, 10%, which is what I did, you want to start implementing some kind of abs training as well. Now, one big tip, and what I meant when it came to what I was telling you guys over here, that a lot of people will miss when it comes to eating less calories and that kind of thing, is that they don't understand that you want to move more, eat less, but that is not the only way to create that caloric deficit. You want to also focus on your BMR, your base metabolic rate, and that is essentially your metabolism. And there's a lot of myths of, you know, if you can change your metabolism or not. Essentially, you can by increasing your muscle mass because your body burns more calories to retain muscle mass. So if in the process that you're creating this caloric deficit, you're also strength training, you're getting stronger, you're getting bigger, you're doing some kind of hypertrophy, resistance-based training, whether it is calisthenics or weightlifting or whatever it is, this is going to help along the way as well, because although it doesn't make a difference from one week to the other, this increase in muscle growth is going to increase your base metabolic rate. Hence, you're going to be able to eat more, but your you're still going to be staying in that caloric deficit because your body needs more calories to maintain that muscle mass. So don't just train your abs when it comes to step 2, right? You still want to be applying the same principles as with any other muscle group. So that's the pro tip, right? Don't just train your abs, train every single, have a good actual workout routine, hypertrophy based workout routine. Not only is it going to pair up very well with your defined abs, but it's also going to make it a lot easier to achieve that that low enough body fat percentage because your body's burning more calories. So apply the same principles, progressive overload, which just means continuously going harder than last time, whether increasing the stimulus by increasing the weights, increasing the angles, making it harder. So you essentially don't want to do the exact same workout because of course your body will adapt to it, you'll get stronger to the point that one workout is not going to be as effective as the last because you need to increase the load, etc. But yeah, hit both the upper and lower naps. What kind of workouts do you want to do? What kind of exercises? Make it simple, right? Something that you can stay consistent with. I usually would just recommend doing, if you go to the gym, doing some kind of cable crunch or something that you can easily add a weight to. However, if you're doing pure calisthenics, you can also do some kind of hanging leg raise and increasing the variation. And that is how essentially you add progressive overload to that. But another very big thing that people don't or they overlook is their nutrition and recovery, right? You don't just want to get to a low enough body fat percentage. Once again, there's also a lot of arguments about abs are made in the kitchen. Why should I grow my abs then? Blah, blah, blah. Once again, take best of both worlds and apply both principles. Don't just move more or eat less. Do both. Grow your abs and also continue losing fat because that is how you're going to actually get to that point where you can see your abs and be able to maintain it because you're applying pressure or you're basically pushing from this side and pulling from this side, making it a lot easier for you to achieve that goal. But this is where a lot of people go wrong: nutrition and recovery, which I'll get into it once I explain this part. Maintaining, step 3. Once you get to that point where you have a good amount of muscle mass, you can see your abs, stay at maintenance. And that goes back to my first point. If you did this slowly and correctly, you should have gotten to the point where you're in that low enough body fat percentage, but you don't feel like you're restricted in terms of the food that you eat and the calories that you consume. It doesn't feel hard because you took your time, you actually ate good food, you gave your body the time and ability to adapt to less and less calories to the point that you're now at a point where you have enough muscle mass that you're not constantly starving yourself, and you also took your time, so it didn't really feel like that big of a difference from whenever you first started your cut to now that you actually have abs. If you were to have done that in a much shorter amount of time, it would have felt like a much bigger difference, and it's going to be a lot harder for you to stay at that level in terms of your body fat percentage, aka staying at maintenance. So prioritize consistency over perfection. You're gonna fall off your diet, you're gonna eat this, take a sip of that. There's gonna be downfalls. However, don't allow these things to bring you down. Focus on consistency over perfection. If you missed the workout or if you missed a meal or if you had a cheat meal, don't just start binging. Don't throw everything out the window. Your body does not reset from one day to the other. Your body does not know what is happening. So if you just start binging and start throwing everything out the window because you messed up on one meal, not a good rabbit hole you want to get yourself into. So finally, enjoy it, right? Enjoy the process. The more that you like something, the easier it is going to be for you to stick to that. Now, if you guys don't exactly understand some of these terms, I've made quite a good amount of videos which are going to help you to better understand this and help you with this whole ab journey, getting shredded, that kind of thing. And if you're also very interested in overall getting a better physique, not just the abs, I have a good bunch load of videos up here which you can check out. And once again, Rome was not built in a day. If you want to fast track your progress, I do have my fitness coaching program. I'm taking right now 15-minute free fitness consultations by just clicking the link below. I'll see you guys over there, and thank you guys so much for watching. Bye-bye.